It just goes on and on. Whether it's going into Mozambique in Europe or going into Paris and the no-go zones, or whether it is Bilderberg and our people getting arrested, it's amazing what true journalists and true activists for freedom are doing. We wear our bias on our sleeve that we love liberty, we love freedom. And that's why it's more important than ever that you support the InfoWar, that you go to InfoWarsStore.com and see the amazing products, because just as our news and information and analysis is spot on, cutting edge, and on fire, so are the water filtration systems, the non-GMO heirloom seeds, the nutraceuticals, the Patriot apparel, the Hillary for President, the Molon Labe, the Come and Take It. Everything we do is about being hardcore, in your face, shooting you straight, plain talk, Americana, bare knuckles, in the street. And I'm telling you, this will trump globalist sniveling, manipulation, and garbage anytime. So InfoWarsStore.com, I want to thank you all for your support so our reporters can be out there risking their lives, quite frankly. And at the same time, I want to encourage everybody to go sign up for the free newsletter, because we can get key intel, key reports, key information to you as censorship intensifies across the web, InfoWars.com/newsletter. But because I mentioned this yesterday, I want to go over this report just for a minute or two here right now, and then throw it back to David Knight. This is out of the National Review. There's several other articles where you can actually go to this professor's writings. They are incredible. We should do a whole report on him. Professor, if you read to your kids, you're unfairly disadvantaging others. So again, if you exercise, it's not right you've got bigger muscles. Or if you jog, it's not right that somebody that weighs 500 pounds can't do that. You see, having a mother or father is bad, being a he or she, because some folks aren't a he or she, they say. So your identity hurts them. You understand? This is how they're conquering culture. And you think, well, that'll never happen. Everything else happened. They got our kids. They have our kids in the schools. But it's worse than I was even saying. I keep forgetting to go to the last page. And National Review should have had the headline, Professor Calls for Abolishing the Family. But I've read in the textbooks that the main colleges like UTUs, I've shown it on air, the family belongs to a bygone barbaric era and must be eradicated. Well, here it is again, National Review, a quote from him on ABC News in this country. At one point, Swift even flirted with the idea of, quote, simply abolishing the family as a way of solving the social justice problem, because there would be a more level playing field if we did, but ultimately concluded that it's in the child's interest to be parented, and that parenting a child makes for what we call a distinctive and special contribution to the flourishing and well-being of adults. So the state may allow parents for now, because we admit there's something there kind of cutesy. In their textbooks, they say they're getting rid of it. They are getting rid of it. They're saying your kids belong to the state on MSNBC. But they're just getting you used to it right now. These people are dangerous.
So part of it is we have to break through our kind of private idea that kids belong to their parents or kids belong to their families, and recognize that kids belong to whole communities. Once it's everybody's responsibility and not just the households, then we start making better investments.
The Violence Policy Center once, in an article where they were bad-mouthing me, said, I don't care what Jones does. We got your kids in the schools. We will take your guns. Remember the Attorney General said, we're going to brainwash you to get the guns. Remember that IRS employee called in and said, we're going to arrest you people. It doesn't matter. We're coming for you. On MSNBC, they say, of course arrest the Tea Party. They're evil. Of course we persecute you with the IRS. They're very proud of their evil. The Nazis thought they were good running around doing bad stuff. They thought they were the good guys. It's like that skit I saw, I forget which show, like, we're wearing skulls and we're wearing black, we kill everybody. Maybe we're the bad guys. We started the wars. Maybe we're the bad guys. Yeah, exactly. You're the bad guys, okay? Doesn't mean mainline conservatives aren't bad either, but libertarians, patriots, we're the good guys, okay? We're the ones that want prosperity and freedom and private property and the right to self-defense, and you can live like you want, do whatever you want, decriminalize drugs, whatever. Just get off my back and don't try to teach my 5-year-old how to put a condom on. But look at this. According to a professor at the University of Warwick in England, parents who read to their kids should be thinking about how they're unfairly, this is a quote, unfairly disadvantaging other people's children by doing so. This is on ABC News. They interviewed Professor Adam Swift, said that since bedtime story activities do indeed foster and produce desired familiar relationships, he wouldn't want to ban them. Oh, not yet. So they introduced that idea. But that parents would engage in bedtime story activities should definitely at least feel kind of bad about it sometimes. Like if you're beautiful, feel bad about it. And then they go on to say they don't realize how bad this is or how bad it is to give them, can't be justified. Private schooling cannot be justified by appeal to these familiar relationship goods. So see, getting better school than somebody else. No one can have anything. Only the elite can divvy up and distribute and create this mentally ill culture where they decide the winners and losers and totally control civilization. And where a computer decides which job you get. But of course, who programs that computer? This is the whole zeitgeist, giant prison gulag program. This is total, absolute authoritarianism. So great job to the crew, great job to the viewers and listeners, great job to our affiliates. It is so amazing. It's surreal to come out and call Lindbeck a pot-bellied goblin laying supine on his stomach before Zuckerberg, and to see that in newspapers all over the country and people walking me on the street. I mean, it is getting crazy in the info war where almost every day things we talk about become memes and change the news. That's not a power trip for Alex Jones. That's a great responsibility. And that all goes to you, the viewers and listeners, the affiliates, the sponsors, Matt Drudge at drudgereport.com, who's helped boost us over the years. But we're all in this together, and it's wonderful to know we're the Patriots, and it's great to know who the enemy is and to be taking action against them. Back to David Knight.
Thanks, Alex. And, of course, we're going to be back right after the break. We're going to talk in detail about this report of the Washington Post, a Univision reporter who went to a commencement address. You know, it's interesting how these commencement addresses work out. We had Tom Brokaw talk about how we needed to confiscate guns and how guns in the hands of the people was essentially domestic terror. Now we've got a Univision presenter who goes to a commencement address for a journalism school and starts going off on a Spanish rant. Yeah, also anti-Trump. And we'll show you what happened at that event when we come back. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. I'm David Knight. This is our last segment of the first 3 hours, but Rob Dew is going to be with us in the fourth hour. He's got a big fourth hour coming up. Also, before we go to this report about what happened to the Spanish speaker at the journalism school commencement exercise, I want to let you know that we've extended this sale. I don't know how much longer it's going to go for Survival Shield X2, 20% off of our nascent iodine, Survival Shield X2. You can find that at InfoWarsLife.com. Also, if you sign up for our InfoWars newsletter, that's the InfoWars Underground Insider. If you sign up for that at InfoWars.com, we'll send you a promo code for 50% off our two most popular T-shirts, Hillary for Prison and Come and Take It. Those are great T-shirts, and it's a great newsletter. It's got a lot of original content that you're not going to find at our website or elsewhere. Again, 50% off those T-shirts when you sign up for the free newsletter, and 20% off of Survival Shield X2 Nascent Iodine at InfoWarsLife.com. Now we'll go to this report from the Washington Post. I think it's very interesting, the reaction of the crowd. You know, I think people have just about had it with having this political correctness shoved down our throats. This is a commencement exercise at California State University, Fullerton. They had a speaker there. She talked about Donald Trump, and she started going off in Spanish at a commencement event. Okay, this is a journalism school where you would expect that people would learn English. Look, if you want to get ahead, you need to understand that you need to be able to speak English. When we went to Denmark, in Copenhagen, to cover the Bilderberg meeting there, signs everywhere were in English. As a matter of fact, if they were in only one language, what we saw throughout Copenhagen was it wasn't in their native language, it would be in English. They would put up signs in English and then often in their own language as well, because that's where you're going to get ahead. You need to understand that. For your own good, you need to learn English. Instead of us importing all the students who want to come here, get an education for free in the United States, and tell us that they want to be educated in their native language, no, they need to learn English even for their own benefit. We can't afford to educate all the children in the world. We can't afford to educate them certainly in the language of their choice, but it's to their advantage to learn English. You know, in the past, educated people needed to know Latin, or they needed to know French. The lingua franca today is English, all right? Now, this is Denise Dela Cruz, a graduating senior, also Hispanic. She wrote about this event for the OC Weekly. She said, Salinas' speech was well received until it became a little too Latino-centric for some and blatantly anti-Trump. The Univision broadcaster began specifically congratulating Latino journalism students for what seemed like a large chunk of her speech. And here's the crowd reaction. Let's play that clip.
Something that a candidate said, well, thanks to technology, now we can prove that the candidate actually said what he or she said they didn't say. So thank God for technology. Well, imagine they blame us so much for so many things that now they're even blaming us, the media, for creating Donald Trump. Imagine that. Isn't that terrible? Oh, we didn't, right? Who did it? I don't know who did it, but they're to blame. So I just want to close with telling you that.
Okay, so she started after that clip there. She went into Spanish. That's what I really wanted to hear. I wanted to hear the crowd booing, but we don't have that queued up right there. But basically, she goes off and she starts talking about talking in Spanish, and the crowd booed her off the stage. Dela Cruz said she looked around and she said a lot of graduates were visibly upset. Some were muttering criticism. She said there's probably 100 graduates there, so I can't speak for everyone, but definitely the row where I was seated, there were upset people, and you could hear them heckling her from the crowd. See, here's the issue. They don't want to assimilate. They don't want our form of government. They want Mexico. They can go back to Mexico if they want Mexico. Instead of making America Mexico, they don't want freedom. They want free stuff. They want our stuff. They want our country. They don't want our way of life. Now, there's a lot of Hispanics who do, and they shout down those people, and I expect that they will vote in this coming election. They know that they don't want a Mexico here in America. They don't want that form of government, and I think they'll vote accordingly. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Rob Dew, Fourth Hour. Welcome back to the Fourth Hour of the Alex Jones Show. Rob Dew is going to be taking over in the next segment. He's going to be talking to Ella Grace, who's author of America is Infected. She's going to talk to you about the situation that happened with her family, the way Child Protective Services came after her with a situation because her child caught a disease. In this segment, I want to go back to something that I just briefly touched on earlier in the show. There's this article from Wired Magazine saying calling Uber is cooler than owning a car, and all the automakers want in. Now, they're focusing in this article on how all the automakers are making alliances with Lyft or with Uber or with some of these other ride-sharing software companies. So you've got General Motors, as they point out, poured a lot of money into Lyft. They're going to be doing a joint effort there. Toyota and Volkswagen are joining up with others. Israeli ride-hailing startup Get is going to be joining up with Toyota. And Toyota is also, I'm sorry, that was VW. They're investing $300 million in the Israeli ride-sharing company. Toyota has signed a memo of understanding with Uber. So they're making all these alliances. And they've made an alliance to lobby Congress. We've mentioned this before. We got Ford and Volvo, the automobile companies, joining with Uber and Lyft and with Google in order to shut down any regulation of self-driving cars. That's where this is headed. And what they're trying to sell you on is the idea that you really don't want to own a car. I remember 30, 40 years ago, they were telling everybody, look, yeah, we're sending manufacturing overseas. Okay, fine. We understand that. You know, NAFTA, we had Ross Perot complaining about NAFTA, said it was a giant sucking sound. They said, no. You don't want manufacturing jobs. Those are nasty. Those are smokestack industry jobs. You want a clean service economy. And as Gerald Celente has pointed out many times, you want to live in a service economy, you're going to be a servant. Those jobs don't pay as well. They also don't give us the infrastructure for independence, for freedom, for liberty, for prosperity. They don't give us the ability to be able to create the devices that make us self-reliant and give us the ability to defend ourselves. And so now we're going from them selling us the service economy to them selling you the renter economy. We've seen these trade deals that have been put out, and they say, well, the stakeholders have been consulted on this. Yeah, we didn't tell you. We didn't tell your elected representatives because you don't really matter. You're not a stakeholder. You don't have a stake in the future. You don't own anything. And as we pointed out earlier this week, you've got of the cash that is held by non-financial institutions, 5 companies have a third of it. Another third is owned by the next 45. Okay, so now you got the top 50 companies own 2/3 of the cash. And the remaining third is owned by all the rest of the companies. But think about how concentrated that has become, how concentrated that ownership of cash has become. Just as we've seen, 90% of the media is controlled by 5 media companies. And of course, that may be smaller now. That's a couple of years old. We see that 5 companies own 30% of the cash. Now, are you going to own anything in the future? They say that's not cool to own anything. They say people don't want cars, they want rides. You need to understand what's really